Intuitive Eating, 3rd edition, by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. Introduction. Imagine this for a moment. A woman named Sandra sits in an office. She's not there for a job interview, or a doctor's appointment in the usual sense. She's there because she's at the end of her rope. She looks at the person across from her and says, "I just can't go on another diet. You're my last resort." Sandra has been dieting her entire life. She's a professional. Name a diet, she's tried it. Atkins, South Beach, The Zone, the grapefruit diet, you name it. And for a little while, each one felt like the answer. There was a thrill, a sense of control, a feeling of, this time, it'll be different, but it never was. Like a boomerang she couldn't get rid of, the weight always came back, often bringing a few extra pounds with it for the ride. She had hit what the authors of our book today call diet bottom. It's a place of quiet desperation. A place where you are more obsessed with food and your body than ever before, yet you feel completely powerless. Sandra felt foolish. At her age, she thought, I should have this handled. I should have this under control. What she didn't realize, and what so many of us never do, is that the very thing she was using to solve her problem was the problem itself. Dieting had made food the enemy. It had taught her to feel guilty. It had slowed her metabolism to a crawl. And it had trapped her in a cycle of hope and failure that chipped away at her spirit, year after year. Today, we're going to talk about the way out. We're diving into a revolutionary book called Intuitive Eating, by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. This isn't just another book about food. It's a key that unlocks the prison of chronic dieting. For over 25 years, this book has quietly started a revolution, selling millions of copies and creating a movement that's now backed by a mountain of scientific evidence. The authors, both registered dietitians, stumbled upon a truth that was hiding in plain sight: our bodies already know how to eat. We are all born with this wisdom. By the end of our time together, you will understand the single greatest lie the $60 billion weight loss industry has been selling you. You will discover the 10 principles that can help you unlearn the damaging rules of dieting, make peace with food, and finally, truly, trust your own body again. This isn't about a new set of rules. It's about returning to a wisdom you were born with. It's about freedom. So let's begin. Book summary. Have you ever stopped to think about the sheer absurdity of the world of dieting? It's an industry with a failure rate of over 95%. Let that sink in. If any other product failed 95% of the time, it would be pulled from the shelves. If your car mechanic failed to fix your car 95% of the time, you wouldn't blame yourself? You'd find a new mechanic. Yet, when a diet fails us, who do we blame? Ourselves. We tell ourselves we lacked willpower. We weren't disciplined enough. We weren't good. This is the great paradox of dieting. We don't blame the process, we blame ourselves, time and time again. The authors, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch, saw this firsthand in their own practices. They were trained nutritionists, creating perfect, personalized meal plans for their clients. And for a while, it worked. Clients lost weight, goals were met, and everyone was happy. But then, the calls would start coming in. Somehow, the clients would say, full of apology and shame, the weight came back on. I couldn't stick to the plan. It became clear to the authors that something was deeply wrong with this approach. Their good intentions were only reinforcing a terrible belief in their patients, that they were the failure. That they couldn't be trusted around food. This realization was the seed from which intuitive eating grew. It's a bridge between the anti-diet world that says love your body and the health world that says watch what you eat. It asks a simple but profound question. What if the problem isn't the food, and it isn't you? What if the problem is the rule book you've been forced to play by? This journey begins by understanding the damage that rulebook has caused. The authors call it diet backlash. It's the collection of side effects that accumulate after years of dieting. Maybe you recognize some of them. The moment you even think about starting a diet, you suddenly get intense cravings for all the foods you know will be forbidden. It's a phenomenon called the Last Supper. You find yourself eating more, not less, in the days leading up to day one of the diet. It's your mind's frantic party, a farewell tour for your favorite foods, because you genuinely believe you might never eat them again. Or maybe you find yourself withdrawing from social events. A party or a dinner out with friends becomes a minefield of temptations, so it just feels easier to stay home. You might feel like you can't trust yourself around food anymore. Every diet that failed has taught you, little by little, not to listen to your body's signals. And perhaps the most frustrating symptom of all, your metabolism slows down. With each diet, your body learns to survive on less. It becomes incredibly efficient at holding on to every calorie, preparing for the next self-imposed famine. It's a biological defense mechanism. Your body doesn't know you're trying to fit into a certain pair of jeans, it thinks it's starving. This is the Chinese finger puzzle of dieting. The harder you try to pull away, the harder you try to control and restrict, the tighter the trap becomes. You can't fight biology. The desire to be thin leads to dieting. The dieting leads to cravings and a feeling of being deprived. That deprivation eventually leads to giving in, to what feels like a loss of control and overeating. And that leads to regaining the weight, which brings you right back to where you started, with the desire to be thin. It's a perfect, closed loop, a cycle that gets worse with every turn. So, if that's the trap, how do we get out? The first step is to recognize what kind of eater dieting has turned you into. The authors identify a few eating personalities that most of us fall into, even when we're not on an official diet. See if any of these sound familiar. First, there's the careful eater. On the surface, this person looks like the perfect eater. They are highly nutrition conscious. They scrutinize labels, interrogate waiters about ingredients, and might seem to have it all figured out. But underneath, there's a constant hum of anxiety. They agonize over every morsel. They might be good all week, only to splurge all weekend, which backfires and leaves them feeling guilty, contemplating yet another diet. Their relationship with food is governed by vigilance and worry. Then there's the professional dieter. This one is easier to spot. They are always on a diet. They've tried the latest bestseller, the new celebrity plan, the gimmick they saw on TV. They know all about calories, and carbs, and points. But the very reason they're always starting a new diet is because the last one never worked. When they're not on a diet, they're thinking about the next one they'll start. For them, eating a forbidden food triggers the what the hell effect. Well, I've blown it now, might as well finish the whole pint of ice cream. The diet starts tomorrow. Finally, there's the unconscious eater. This is the person who is often eating while doing something else, watching TV, reading, working, driving. Eating is paired with another activity, so they're often not fully aware of what, or how much, they're consuming. There are a few subtypes here. The chaotic eater, whose overscheduled life means they grab whatever is available, whenever they can, often going long periods without eating until they are ravenously hungry. The refuse-not eater, who is vulnerable to any food that's simply there. The candy jar at the office, the snacks at a meeting. The waste-not eater, who feels compelled to clean their plate, and maybe everyone else's, because they value the food dollar. And the emotional eater, who uses food to cope with uncomfortable feelings like stress, loneliness, or boredom. All of these eating styles are, in their own way, forms of dieting. They are governed by external rules, by guilt, by a fundamental mistrust of the body. They all work against you. But there is another way. An identity you were born with, before the world told you to be afraid of food. The intuitive eater. Intuitive eaters march to their inner hunger signals. They eat what they choose without guilt. They honor their hunger and respect their fullness. Think about a toddler. A toddler is a natural intuitive eater. They don't know about calories or carbs. They eat when they're hungry. They stop when they're full. Sometimes they eat a lot, sometimes they eat very little. But over the course of a week, study after study shows, it all balances out. They have an innate wisdom. But as we grow up, that wisdom gets buried. It gets buried under a mountain of external forces. Clean your plate. You can't be hungry, you just ate. Saturday morning commercials for sugary cereal. Magazine covers promising a new beach body in 30 days. These messages slowly and surely teach us to stop listening to our own internal cues and start listening to external rules. Dieting is the final blow. It systematically erodes your trust in your own body, replacing your inner wisdom with a rigid set of instructions that are destined to fail. So, the journey of this book is not about learning a new set of rules. It's about unlearning the old ones. It's an excavation project, digging through the rubble of past diets to rediscover the intuitive eater that has been inside you all along. This journey is guided by 10 core principles. They are not a step-by-step plan, but a series of profound shifts in perspective that, together, create a peaceful and healthy relationship with food. The very first principle is the foundation for everything else: reject the diet mentality. This is often the scariest step. It means throwing out the diet books, the magazine articles, the calorie counters, and the bathroom scale. It means getting angry at the lies that made you feel like a failure. You have to let go of the hope that some new, magical diet is just around the corner. Because as long as you hold on to that hope, even a tiny part of it, you will never be truly free. You might feel a sense of panic. If I stop dieting, I won't stop eating. I don't know how to eat if I'm not on a diet. These fears are completely normal. But the reality is, dieting is often the very thing that triggers overeating. It's a normal response to starvation. Once your body learns, and truly trusts, that it will no longer be starved, the intense, primal drive to eat will begin to calm down. This first principle requires you to recognize the damage dieting has caused. It slows your metabolism. It increases binging and cravings. It makes your satiety cues atrophy, so you no longer know when you're full. Psychologically, it erodes your confidence and self-trust. It's linked to feelings of failure, social anxiety, and, in many cases, eating disorders. Recognizing this is the first step in your paradigm shift. If dieting is the problem, how can it ever be part of the solution? Once you've made the commitment to reject dieting, the next principle helps you start listening to your body again. It is principle 2. Honor your hunger. This sounds simple, but for a chronic dieter, it's revolutionary. A dieting body is a starving body. Your cells don't know you're voluntarily restricting food, they just know there's a famine. And your body is brilliantly designed to fight famine. When you don't get enough energy, your body compensates with powerful biological and psychological mechanisms to make you eat. The authors point to a landmark starvation study conducted during World War II. Healthy men were put on a semi-starvation diet, consuming about 1,500 calories a day, the same amount as many modern weight loss diets. The effects were startling. Their metabolisms dropped by 40%. They became obsessed with food, collecting recipes, talking about it constantly, dreaming about it. Their personalities changed. They became irritable, moody, and depressed. And when the study was over and they were allowed to eat freely again, their hunger was insatiable. They found it incredibly difficult to stop eating. This wasn't a failure of willpower. It was biology. It was a primal drive to survive. Your body has a similar response, even on a smaller scale. When you skip a meal or go too long without eating, you trigger this primal drive. Your brain produces a chemical called neuropeptide Y, which specifically triggers a craving for carbohydrates, your body's preferred source of energy. This is why undereating in the morning or afternoon so often leads to overeating at night. It's not a character flaw. It's brain chemistry. So, honoring your hunger is the first step in rebuilding trust with your body. It means learning to listen for the gentle, early signals of hunger, not waiting until you're ravenously hungry. Mild gnawing in your stomach, a little lightheadedness, difficulty concentrating, these are your body's polite requests for fuel. When you respond to them, you send a powerful message to your body: I will feed you. You don't need to panic. This leads us directly to the other side of the equation, which is Principle 5, feel your fullness. For most chronic dieters, the only fullness they recognize is being uncomfortably stuffed. The subtle signal of comfortably full has been lost. Why? Because dieting teaches you to clean your plate. When you're only allowed a small, prescribed portion, you eat every last bite. You stop eating not when your body says it's had enough, but when the food is gone. Respecting your fullness is about learning to listen again. It requires you to pause in the middle of a meal. This isn't a commitment to stop eating. It's just a timeout. A moment to check in. You ask yourself two simple questions. First, a taste check. How does this food taste right now? Is it still as delicious as the first bite? You'll be amazed how often the answer is no. The pleasure of a food often diminishes as you eat it. Second, a satiety check. What is my fullness level? Is my hunger going away? Am I beginning to feel satisfied? In the beginning, this feels awkward. But with practice, you start to recognize that subtle shift from hungry to satisfied. You begin to identify what the authors call the last bite threshold, that point where you know the bite in your mouth is your last. But here's the crucial link. You cannot truly feel your fullness until you embrace Principle 3, make peace with food. How can you possibly leave food on your plate if you believe you'll never be allowed to eat it again? You can't. The fear of future deprivation will always make you eat more. Making peace with food means giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. All foods. There are no good foods and bad foods. A piece of chocolate cake becomes as emotionally neutral as a peach. This is terrifying for most people. If I give myself permission to eat chocolate, I'll never stop. But the authors argue that the exact opposite is true. The very act of forbidding a food gives it immense power. It becomes tantalizing, special, irresistible. The moment you banish a food, it builds a craving life of its own. Think of Heidi, a client who called herself a chocoholic. She believed that if she started eating chocolate, she couldn't stop. So her solution was to never allow herself to eat it. But this created a vicious cycle. She would inevitably succumb, and when she did, she believed it was for the last time. This triggered Last Supper eating. She would consume huge amounts of chocolate, feeling guilty and out of control, which only reinforced her belief that chocolate was a dangerous, forbidden food that she couldn't handle. The solution for Heidi was to systematically, and with support, make peace with chocolate. To allow herself to have it, to keep it in her house, and to truly believe that it would always be there. And a funny thing happened. The urgency disappeared. The frantic, out-of-control feeling vanished. When chocolate was no longer forbidden, it lost its power. She could have a piece or two and be satisfied. This process is about proving to yourself that you can be trusted. But to do that, you have to challenge the voice in your head that tells you you can't. This brings us to Principle 4, challenge the food police. The food police is that voice in your head, your inner critic. It's the sum of all the dieting rules you've ever learned. It's the voice that says you're good for eating a salad and bad for eating a cookie. It shouts negative barbs and guilt-provoking indictments. It's a destructive voice, and chasing it away is a critical step. The authors introduce us to a whole cast of inner voices that influence our eating. There's the food police, the harsh judge. There's the nutrition informant, which uses nutrition facts to back up the food police that has too many grams of fat. And there's the diet rebel, the voice that screams "forget you," and makes you eat a whole pizza just because someone suggested you should have the salad. When you eat a brownie, the food police says, "You've blown it. You have no willpower. You're so bad." This makes you feel ashamed and defeated. And those feelings often lead to eating more brownies. The what the hell effect kicks in. But what if you challenge that thought? What if the nurturer says, "It's okay to have a brownie. It was delicious. I'm satisfied now." The feeling isn't guilt, it's pleasure. And the behavior that follows isn't eating the whole pan, it's enjoying the one and moving on. Your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings drive your behavior. By changing your thoughts, you can change everything. As you start to challenge these old rules and make peace with food, you open the door to a new and powerful experience. This is Principle 6. Discover the satisfaction factor. In our rush to be thin and healthy, we've forgotten one of the most basic gifts of eating: pleasure. The Japanese, the authors note, include pleasure as one of their official goals for healthy living. When you eat what you really want, in an environment that is inviting, the satisfaction you derive is a powerful force. It helps you feel content. And when you are truly satisfied, it takes much less food to feel like you've had enough. Think about how many times you've eaten a rice cake when you really wanted a cookie. Did the rice cake satisfy you? Or did you find yourself on the prowl for something else, eating one healthy substitute after another, chasing a phantom food that you never allowed yourself to have? In the end, you often consume far more calories from the unsatisfying substitutes than you would have from just eating the cookie in the first place. Satisfaction comes from asking yourself, what do I really want to eat right now? It's not just about taste. It's about texture. Do you want something crunchy, or smooth, or chewy? It's about temperature, hot or cold. It's about aroma and appearance. It's about eating slowly enough to actually savor the experience. A motto to live by here is, if you don't love it, don't eat it. And if you love it, savor it. This simple idea is revolutionary for a dieter. It means you don't have to finish a meal just because it's on your plate. If the dessert you ordered is mediocre, you have permission to stop eating it. You are not obligated to finish food that isn't giving you pleasure. When you prioritize satisfaction, you'll find you eat far less, because the experience is richer and more complete. Of course, sometimes we eat for reasons that have nothing to do with hunger or satisfaction. This brings us to Principle 7. Cope with your emotions without using food. From our very first day of life, food is linked with emotion. A crying infant is soothed with a breast or a bottle. A scraped knee is comforted with a cookie. A victory is celebrated with ice cream. Food is love, comfort, reward. It can become a reliable friend, sometimes our only friend, in moments of pain. There is nothing wrong with this, to a point. But when food becomes your primary, or only, coping mechanism, it can become a destructive cycle. Food can't fix anxiety, loneliness, boredom, or anger. It might offer short-term comfort, a distraction from the pain. But the problem will still be there when you're done eating, now accompanied by the physical discomfort of being overfull and the emotional weight of guilt. The key here is to first learn to distinguish between biological hunger and emotional hunger. When you find yourself reaching for food when your body isn't hungry, pause. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And then, what do I need? Maybe you're bored. What you need isn't food, it's stimulation. Maybe you're lonely. What you need is connection. Maybe you're tired. What you need is rest. No amount of food will ever satisfy a need that isn't hunger. This principle is about building a toolbox of new coping strategies. It's about learning to nurture yourself in ways that don't involve food. Taking a walk. Calling a friend. Writing in a journal. Taking a hot bath. It's about learning to sit with your feelings, even the uncomfortable ones, knowing that they will pass. It's about recognizing that overeating is often just a red flag, a signal that something in your life needs attention. All of these principles, making peace with food, honoring your hunger, challenging the food police, they all require a fundamental shift in how you see your body. This is Principle 8. Respect your body. You cannot be at peace with food if you are at war with your body. For every negative thought you have about your body, the food police gain power, and the temptation to start just one more diet grows stronger. Respecting your body means accepting your genetic blueprint. Just as you wouldn't expect to squeeze a size 8 foot into a size 6 shoe, it's equally futile to expect your body to conform to an unrealistic ideal. This doesn't mean you have to love every part of your body overnight. For many, That's too big a leap. The author suggests starting with respect. Respect means treating your body with dignity. It means meeting its basic needs. It means your body deserves to be fed. It deserves to be touched with affection. It deserves to be dressed in clothes that are comfortable, right now, not in clothes that are 10 pounds too small as a motivator. It means quitting the body check game, that silent comparison you do every time you walk into a room. It means stopping the body bashing, that constant stream of criticism about your thighs or your stomach. And it means saying goodbye to the fantasy body you've been chasing. You may need to mourn the loss of the body you thought you should have, to make peace with the body you do have. Ironically, the authors find that when people stop fighting their bodies and start respecting them, they begin to take better care of them. The focus shifts from punishing the body through restriction to nourishing it. And when you respect your body, you start to feel the desire to move it in a way that feels good. This leads to Principle 9. Exercise? Feel the difference. Notice the word choice. It's not exercise, burn the calories. For chronic dieters, exercise is often just another form of punishment. It's the penance you pay for eating. It's a chore, done with the sole goal of weight loss. And if you're dieting, you're also under-eating, which means you don't have the energy to exercise in a way that feels good. It feels like drudgery. So when the diet fails, the exercise stops too. This principle is about decoupling exercise from weight loss. It's about shifting your focus from the calorie-burning effect to how it feels to move your body. When you exercise, how does it affect your stress level, your energy, your mood, your sleep? When you focus on these immediate, tangible benefits, exercise becomes its own reward. It's not something you have to do, it's something you get to do. It becomes a way of taking care of yourself, of honoring your body. It stops being militant and becomes joyful movement. The goal isn't to burn off a meal, it's to feel energized, strong, and alive. Finally, after you've worked through all these other principles, after you've rejected the diet mentality, learned to listen to your body, made peace with food, and started to respect yourself, only then are you truly ready for Principle 10, honor your health with gentle nutrition. This principle comes last for a very important reason. If you start with nutrition, if you start with rules about what you should eat, you can easily turn it into another diet. The nutrition informant teams up with the food police, and you're right back in the trap. But once you have a healthy relationship with food, you can start to make food choices that honor your health and your taste buds, without it feeling like a restriction. It's about progress, not perfection. You will not get a nutrient deficiency or gain weight from one snack, one meal, or one day of eating. It's what you eat consistently over time that matters. Gentle nutrition is about noticing how food makes you feel. You start to realize that when you eat a balanced meal with protein, carbs, and fats, you have more sustained energy than when you just eat sugar. You notice that when you eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, you feel better. You don't make these choices because you should, but because you genuinely want to feel good. This isn't about eliminating play foods, the cookies, the chips, the ice cream. There is a place for those. They are part of a satisfying and pleasurable life. But when you are an intuitive eater, those foods lose their power. They don't call to you in the same way. You'll find that the majority of your choices will naturally be foods that nourish your body, with a smaller portion simply for pleasure. And there is no guilt in either choice. The journey of intuitive eating is not linear. It's a process, with ups and downs. The authors describe 5 stages. Stage 1 is readiness, that moment when you hit diet bottom and know you can't go on this way. Stage 2 is exploration, a phase of hyper-awareness where you consciously learn to listen to your hunger and satiety, and you give yourself that scary but necessary unconditional permission to eat. Stage 3 is crystallization, where the new behaviors start to feel more natural and less awkward. The obsessive thoughts about food begin to quiet down. Stage 4 is when the intuitive eater awakens. Your eating style becomes free-flowing. You easily choose what you want, eat until you're comfortably full, and stop without a second thought. And stage 5 is treasuring the pleasure. At this point, you have reclaimed your birthright. You trust your body completely. Food is a source of pleasure and nourishment, not a source of anxiety and war. You feel free. To bring it all home, the authors apply these same principles to raising children. They argue that we must protect the inborn intuitive eater in our kids. That means trusting them. It's the parent's job to provide a variety of healthy foods, and it's the child's job to decide what and how much to eat. When we restrict certain foods, especially play foods, we make them more desirable and set our kids up for the same battles we've faced. When we pressure them to eat more than they want, we teach them to ignore their own fullness cues. The goal is to keep the dinner table a place of peace, not a battleground, and to model a healthy, joyful relationship with food and movement. At its core, the science now confirms what the authors knew from experience. Intuitive eating is associated with a whole host of positive outcomes: lower BMIs, better self-esteem, higher body satisfaction, and reduced rates of disordered eating. It works because it aligns with our biology, not against it. The entire philosophy can be summed up in one word: trust. Trust that your body knows what it's doing. Trust that you can handle all foods. Trust that your worth is not measured on a scale. And trust that by letting go of control, you will finally, truly, be free. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through intuitive eating, it's worth taking a moment to let the core message really sink in. In a world that is constantly screaming at us from every screen and every magazine cover that our bodies are a problem to be solved, this book offers a quiet but powerful whisper: you are not broken. The most profound lesson, for me, is the radical idea of trust. We live in a culture of mistrust. We're taught to mistrust certain foods, to mistrust our appetites, and most damaging of all, to mistrust our own bodies. We're told that our bodies are lazy and gluttonous by nature, and that without a rigid set of external rules, a diet, a point system, a calorie count, we would spin out of control. Intuitive eating flips that entire narrative on its head. It suggests that the problem isn't a lack of control, it's that we've been trying to control the wrong thing. We've been trying to micromanage a system that is infinitely wise and self-regulating. The constant struggle, the cycles of restriction and binging, the guilt, these aren't signs that our bodies are broken. They are the perfectly logical, predictable symptoms of a system that is being starved and then rebelling. They are the cries of a body that is simply trying to survive. What makes this book so enduring, and why it's more relevant today than ever before, is that it offers a path that is not about adding more rules, but about taking them away. It's a process of subtraction, of unlearning. It's about getting out of your head and back into your body. The world has become even noisier since this book was first written. We're bombarded with "what I eat in a day" videos, with wellness gurus promoting detoxes and cleanses, and with an endless stream of good foods and bad foods. The pressure to perform health, to have a perfect diet, has become another source of anxiety. But intuitive eating reminds us that true health is not about perfection. It's about attunement. It's about flexibility. It's about pleasure. So, how can you start to apply this in your own life, today? It doesn't have to be a massive overhaul. The journey starts with a single, small step. Here are a few simple actions you can take. First, just for the next 24 hours, try pausing before you eat anything. Take one deep breath and ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hungry am I? Don't judge the answer. Don't change what you're about to eat. Just notice. This is the first step in learning to listen to your body's signals again. Second, identify one food police rule that lives in your head. Maybe it's don't eat after 8 p.m., or carbs are bad, or I have to earn my dessert by exercising. Just identify one. Write it down. And then, ask yourself, says who? Gently challenge its authority. You don't have to break the rule right away, but simply questioning it begins to loosen its grip. And third, the next time you eat something you truly enjoy, try to eat the first 3 bites without any distractions. No phone, no TV, no book. Just for 3 bites, focus completely on the taste, the texture, the temperature. Notice the pleasure. This is how you begin to rediscover the satisfaction factor. These small acts of awareness are the seeds from which a new relationship with food can grow. It's a process that requires patience and, most of all, self-compassion. That was a summary of Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. We've explored the core principles today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only show you the map. The real adventure happens when you decide to take the journey yourself. It's in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase resonates with a part of you that you thought you'd forgotten. This summary is your starting point, a way to see if this path is one you want to walk. If anything we've discussed today has sparked a feeling of hope or curiosity, I encourage you to grab a copy of the book. Reading it isn't just about learning information. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself, your body, and your plate for the rest of your life. A link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Every subscription helps us continue to bring these powerful ideas to more people. Let's keep learning and growing together.